Revealed, the inspiring moment a mafia boss and his son transformed a homeless mom's life forever. Maria's fingers trembled as she wiped down the last table at the diner. It was closing time, and her shift had just begun. Weary smiles greeted her from the patrons' faces that were familiar yet blurry in the haze of her exhaustion. The diner buzzed with laughter, a stark contrast to the silence that awaited her at the shelter. As she worked, the weight of her meager paycheck loomed over her like a dark cloud, leaving her stomach twisted in knots. 8-year-old Tommy needed more than this fleeting moment of joy. He needed safety, a place to call home. Always pushing through, she reminded herself of the dreams they had whispered to each other, dreams of soft beds and sunny mornings in their own space. Yet as she threaded through booths collecting plates, doubt gnawed at her. Just outside the diner, a man leaned against the brick wall. Vince Romano, known on the streets as both a figure of respect and fear, observed the scene with calculating eyes. Maria's kind-hearted determination struck a chord in him that night, pulling at the threads of his past. As she moved with grace despite her fatigue, memories of his mother's sacrifices flooded back, forcing him to confront emotions he'd buried deep. Imagine her face if she could see him now, a man layered in sins trying to tread a better path. Guilt twisted within him, the remnants of compassion he thought he had discarded. He hesitated to leave, watching as Maria cradled a few tips from her shift in trembling hands, her expression a mix of desperation and unyielding determination. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Vince decided to follow her that night. Maria turned down an alley toward the shelter, her frail silhouette gradually obscured by darkness. With each step, Vince's heart grew heavy. The weight of his own privilege pressed on him with a cruel irony. He could offer no more than just fleeting glances, passing moments of sympathy. Yet, as he began to piece together the entirety of her struggle, he felt a constriction in his chest. He had become a chain holding him back from what was right. He had grown comfortable in the shadows, hiding behind the facade of power. When he confided in Alex later, it erupted in a mixture of frustration and concern. "Dad, you're not that guy anymore," Alex argued, the uneasiness in his voice mingling with a challenging tone. But the shadows of the past loomed large, whispering warnings against breaking old habits. Maria's plight ignited something in him, a yearning to right the wrongs of his life, yet the fear of retribution kept him dormant. As they concocted a plan to help, a flicker of hope ignited in Vince, but it was suffocated by the looming threat of an undercurrent of violence and betrayal from rival gangs. The pressures encased Maria in a cocoon of oblivion, unaware of the turmoil swirling around her. Would she ever receive the stable shelter she so desperately sought? Or was fate poised to strip away any shot at peace for her and Tommy? The questions engulfed Vince as he stood at a crossroads, feeling the tension build with no easy resolution. Would he allow his fears to win once more, casting away the chance to be a catalyst for change in their lives? Or would the undying love for his son push him past the brink? The weight of his decisions lay heavy in the air. Would old habits pull him back before he could ever reach out? Time ticked on, promises teetered on the edge, and the silence around Maria remained deafeningly loud. Maria arrived at the shelter, a place that felt simultaneously like refuge and prison. The air inside was stale, a blend of dust and worry that had settled into the cracks of the walls, mirroring the weight in her heart. She found Tommy asleep on the lumpy cot they shared, his small frame curled tightly as if trying to shield himself from the world. The sight sparked a fierce, protective instinct in her, underpinning her resolve to create a better life for both of them. Each day spent in this environment chipped away at her hopes, the uncertainty gnawed at her persistent optimism. Tipping her head back slightly, she gazed at the dim ceiling, allowing herself a moment of silence to gather her thoughts. The dreams she once nurtured seemed distant, a faded photograph where she couldn't quite remember the smiles, only the melancholy. She had always managed to hold on to her sense of purpose, but now she felt as though she were losing energy for the fight. What resources did she have left to reach for a life beyond survival? It nagged at her like an unanswered call. The following morning brought a fresh gray blanket over the city, a reminder of how the days blended into one another. On her walk to the diner, she spotted the usual faces, the downcast eyes, the vacant stares. It was a parade of defeat, yet her resolve to uplift her son flickered like a stubborn wick. Suddenly, her thoughts turned back to Vince, the affluent man who had observed her from the shadows. Amongst her meager resources, she recognized that nothing had ever mattered more than lifting Tommy's spirits, and if that meant seeking help from unexpected places, she would, to avoid ending up as just another statistic lost to the streets. That and the diner, the clutter and bustle momentarily distracted her from pondering burdens too heavy to carry alone, but she couldn't shake the encounter from her mind. She felt a smidge of hope tied to Vince's presence. What could he possibly do, though? Would he actually care enough to intervene? Or would he eventually retreat back into his world, leaving her with only memories of a chance meeting? Despite the uncertainty, his appearance continued to illuminate a previously unkind path, one shrouded in shadows but hinting at potential light. As the day wore on, she found herself increasingly aware of every minute detail. The way the sunlight cut through the grimy window and painted stripes across her crumpled uniform. The laughter echoing in the cafe felt more like a distant dream than a reality. What if she could rise from this weight? She could feel a fire igniting within her, compelling her to reclaim her narrative. After another relentless shift, Maria returned to her cot, where Tommy awaited her. As he stirred awake, they exchanged a smile and affirmation of the bond that held them together against the world's cruelty. Yet, the foundation of trust they shared rested heavily on her ability to transform their circumstances. Driven forward, she pondered strategies, maybe a part-time job, perhaps public assistance. But how to break the cycle of fear and neglect? Vince's lingering image was more than a fleeting thought now, it was a challenge. Could he, a man so far from her world, offer her an opportunity she didn't even know to ask for? The notion fluttered in her mind like a moth to a flame, igniting realization. The moment demanded action, and she could not bow under the weight of her doubts any longer. She would confront this new direction, and the decision to reach out for help felt exhilarating yet terrifying. Tomorrow promised another chance, but this time, she would approach it differently. She took a deep breath as if readying herself to step onto a stage. What could arise from this leap of faith? But what if tomorrow, she found herself at the nexus of two worlds, facing the core of her struggle? The moment she would have to confront Vince head-on. Would he become a lifeline or a reminder of all she feared? The anticipation loomed like a thundercloud, promising a storm of decisions beyond her wildest dreams. The morning light pierced through the cloud cover, breaking into shards illuminating the gritty streets as Maria braced herself for the day. A mix of trepidation and adrenaline coursed through her. Today felt different. She stared at her reflection in the smudged glass of the diner, acknowledging a woman she hardly recognized. The shadows under her eyes spoke of sleepless nights, yet the resolve etched on her face revealed a spark and inner strength burgeoning at the precipice of change. With her heart pounding, she took a deep breath and pushed through the doors of the diner, surrounded by the familiar cacophony of clinking dishes and chatter. It was a world where she was simultaneously a part of and an outsider. Her mind was focused, her goal crystal clear. She had parsed Vince's striking features from the fabric of her memories, a vivid reminder of her unexpected encounter. What could start as a simple conversation could unravel pathways to possibilities. The right words could be prime currency, and Maria set her determination like armor. As she worked her shift, her hands moved swiftly, delivering coffee and taking orders while feigning a nonchalance that betrayed her racing thoughts. Each clatter of mugs echoed her doubts, yet the determination in her chest whispered loudly. She envisioned not just survival but also the kind of life that could cradle her dreams again. All it would take was one opportunity. She had to find a way to connect with Vince before the day faded. Lunchtime arrived swiftly, busying the diner with its rush of patrons. Maria's attention perked when she spotted Vince at his usual booth, quietly observing the unfolding drama around him, the remnant threads of their last encounter lighting a smoldering ember of hope in her. She wiped her hands on her apron, her heart hammering with what felt like a potent mixture of desperation and boldness. It was now or never. She took a step toward him, her mind racing with half-formed sentences and fears clashing against her urgency. "Mr. Vince," she approached, voice steady yet soft, "could we talk for a moment?" The weight of her hope hung in the air, thickening with the potential of this singular engagement. His gaze lifted to meet hers, an unexpected flicker of interest in his eyes. "Maria," he replied, his tone a labyrinth of curiosity and caution. "What's on your mind?" In that moment, everything coalesced. She tackled the hesitation threatening to sink her resolve, weaving together the narrative of her life, the struggles, the fears, the deep love for her son. Each word she spoke was tinged with vulnerability, and she could feel the barriers she had built around herself begin to crack. "I've been trying to provide for Tommy and me, but I don't know where to start. I was hoping for guidance." Vince leaned back, an inscrutable expression clouding his features. For a heartbeat, a vortex of silence enveloped them. Maria's heart raced, her mind darting between hope and dread. What if he dismissed her, as others had? What if this was all in vain? Yet, she stood firm, eyes locked on his, ready to confront any outcome. "Why do you think I can help?" he finally asked, tilting his head slightly as if weighing her sincerity. Her breath caught, and in that fragile moment, insight surfaced, the weight of her circumstances tethering her as much as her love for Tommy anchored her spirit. "Because sometimes, people see potential where others see despair," she replied, the courage of a long-overdue plea pouring out. "I want to change our story, and maybe you do too." There was a long pause between them, laced with unspoken possibilities. The world around them fell away, focusing exclusively on the flickering flame of this conversation. Maria felt the swell of vulnerability transform into determination, a readiness to confront not just Vince's impression of her life but her perception of herself. But he turned the gaze away momentarily, revealing a contemplative interior clash. There it was, the unresolved tension, the potential connection straining at the seams of her available resourcefulness and desire for transformation. She could feel the swell of hope urging forward, needling out pathways. "Let us see where this can lead," Vince finally uttered. There it was, an invitation, a flicker of light drawing them both from the shadows. Yet, she knew this was only the start. The journey was about to spiral beyond her wildest expectations. What challenges would arise in the wake of this newfound partnership? Would Vince guide her through the tumultuous waters ahead, or would hidden truths unravel the bond before it could even begin? The clock was ticking, and the stakes were high. Maria took the leap, ready for whatever the next act would bring. Maria's resolve solidified into something tangible, a determination that electrified her every step as she left the diner later that day. The weight of her earlier confrontation with Vince stirred a mixture of anxiety and anticipation within her. She now felt the unfamiliar sensation of hope clashing with deep-seated fears. Would he follow through? Would he really mentor her towards a different life? That night, after wrapping up her responsibilities at the diner and returning to their cramped apartment, Maria stood in the small kitchen, Tommy occupied in his corner with crayons and paper. The flickering light was almost comforting, yet it couldn't drown out the anxiety clenching her chest. She carefully placed a pot of water on the stove, filling it with a resolve born from her discussion with Vince. Every moment spent preparing a simple dinner felt like a reflection of her hopes, a culinary metaphor for what she desired to cultivate in her life. Each dollop of seasoning was laced with aspirations for a brighter horizon. She tried to connect the dots between her world of plates and clichés and the unfamiliarity of Vince's. Would he be patient enough to guide her through the uncharted territory of ambition? As she stirred the pot, her thoughts drifted back to her conversation with him. "Let us see where this can lead." His words echoed, provoking a wave of reflection. What did she want to achieve? It was crucial that she not only grasp what was before her but also strategize how to go after it. Tommy's laughter cut through her reverie, and she turned to find him drawing an imaginative scene, the kind of creativity that made her heart swell with pride, and yet it also stung with a piercing reminder of how she struggled to provide opportunities for him. If she failed to secure a better future, what would he become? Dinner was a simple affair, yet Maria relished every bite, encouraging Tommy to share stories about his day and dreams. She listened intently, grounding herself in that moment. It was a departure from the dread that had gripped her daily routine. It was about cultivating connection. Her son needed stability and vision, and she wouldn't let the constraints of her circumstances dictate their fate. Later that night, in the stillness of their cramped space, While Tommy slept sprawled across his makeshift bed, Maria pulled out the small journal she'd tucked away. Its pages filled with half-formed ideas and plans, but tonight, they felt like seeds waiting for nourishment. With the pen steady in her hand, she began to outline her goals. The first step was simple but profound: gather information about opportunities in her community. Identify local resources, organizations, any potential contacts that could help guide her path. This would be the foundation from which she could build the dreams she wanted for her son. Suddenly, an idea flickered, a realization she hadn't fully embraced until now. She could devise a way to leverage her skills as a waitress, developing a rapport that might lead to connections with others in the industry or potential mentors. Maybe she could even turn her story into a beacon for others. With each word she inscribed, her confidence swelled. Maria could hear her heart beating in rhythm with the pen gliding over the paper. The act of creating a plan felt cathartic, transformative. It was a manifesto of intent, but just as quickly as her excitement surged, doubts flooded in once again. Could she really navigate this world? Was she competent enough to break free from the life she had known? The fears gnawed at the edges of her empowerment, insidious and relentless. The convictions she had mustered throughout the day began to falter under the weight of reality. Would she find the courage to confront systemic hurdles, or would she remain tethered to her current circumstances? As she closed her journal and set her sights towards the dawn of the new day, she felt a longing cast over her, an impatience for clarity, an urgency for action. She would need more than just her plan. If she was to break the cycle of her life, she would have to confront the ghosts of her own doubts first. Vince's mentoring weighed heavily on her mind, and there was knowing in her gut that the upcoming meeting would be pivotal. Would she have the courage to fully present herself? Or would vulnerability slip through her fingers, rendered useless in the face of her self-doubt? Her world was on the cusp of change, but what exactly would that change require? With the sun slowly rising, casting its ochre warmth across the room, Maria found herself on the precipice of a decision, facing a convergence of hope and terror that would define her journey. As the morning light seeped through the thin curtains, Maria felt an electric charge coursing through her. Today was the day. The thought flickered through her mind like a flame, intensifying with every moment. Maria gathered herself in front of the small mirror in the bathroom, taking stock of the woman staring back, wearied yet resilient. She needed to embody that resilience today. Overcoming her doubts was the first step in reshaping not only her life but Tommy's as well. After preparing breakfast, hastily pushing scrambled eggs onto a plate, she joined Tommy at the small table. He devoured his food with a determination that surprised her. That same intensity was what she needed for her meeting with Vince. She practiced deep breaths, reassuring herself that today would be significant. Each bite she took was tempered by a mix of excitement and dread. Images of her conversation with Vince coursed through her mind. His eyes, piercing yet patient, lingered in her thoughts, and she could almost hear him urging her on, prompting her to share her dreams and fears. What if she could learn to embrace that vulnerability? What if showing her insecurities could lead to her strength? After breakfast, she rummaged through her closet, pulling out an outfit that felt both youthful and assertive. As she tightened her hair into a bun, she caught her reflection again. Today, she was not just a waitress or a struggling single mother. She was an aspiring professional with ambitions clawing for expression. This realization brought a flutter of hope, seizing control over the nagging doubts that threatened to undermine her resolve. The diner felt surreal as she walked in for her shift, a poignant contrast to the turmoil within. Each table was a small universe of lives, the laughter and conversations a vivid reminder of other people's ambitions and stories. Maria dove into her work, sustaining her focus by gathering snippets of conversations around her. The rhythms of the diner, bustling and chaotic, mirrored the frenzy building in her chest. She needed this chaos. It galvanized her spirit. As lunchtime neared, the thought of her meeting crept closer, urging her to address the lurking fear of being rejected. What if she stumbled over her words? What if Vince saw her lack of experience as a fault? She pushed those thoughts away and redirected her energy into the syrupy chatter of customers requesting coffee. The clatter of dishes and the sizzling of grills became her armor. When she finally clocked out, Maria felt a gust of nervous adrenaline coursing through her veins. The sun was inching towards its zenith as she made her way toward the corner cafe where they had agreed to meet. She observed the world around her, eyes catching flashes of sunlight on polished cars and glimmers of laughter wafting from nearby sidewalks. Everything felt alive and invigorating, yet the inside of her stomach twisted painfully, anticipating the meeting that lay ahead. Stepping inside the cafe, she soaked in the warm ambience. Vince was already seated at a table, his demeanor unfaltering, an anchor amidst the bustling crowd. As she approached, a wave of shyness clutched at her throat, but she reminded herself to breathe. With each step, she resolved to strip away the fear and embrace the moment, reminding herself of all she had prepared for. "Hey, Maria," he greeted, motioning for her to sit down. His presence, although intimidating, somehow soothed her racing heart. They exchanged pleasantries, and she took a moment to gather her thoughts, mentally flipping through the pages of her goals and aspirations. But then, as she looked into Vince's expectant eyes, her confidence began to wane. Would she share her dreams? Would she be able to articulate the insecurities that threatened to dismantle her aspiration? For the first time, vulnerability wrapped itself around her like a cloak. As hesitation gripped her, the spell of his gaze unraveling the strands of her courage, Maria sensed a shift. The moment came for direct confrontation with herself. It was time to speak her truth, yet doubts pinched at her, pleading for silence. Did she have the courage to voice the potential that lay dormant within her? "Vince," she started, and as the words left her lips, she felt the fork in the road. She was about to make a choice, a leap into the unknown. But would her admission strengthen her resolve or plunge her into a deeper pit of uncertainty? The weight of the moment hung in the air, thick and potent. Maria felt the stir of hope flutter at the edges of her consciousness, battling her ingrained fears. She needed to seize this opportunity, but would she rise to the challenge? Maria's heart raced as she prepared to speak, her palms clammy against the table. She could feel time stretching, each second elongating into an eternity while she fought an internal battle. The stakes surged, and uncertainty clawed at her insides, mingling with a fierce determination. She would not let this opportunity slip away. "Vince," she repeated, steadier now, and watching his face gave her a flicker of resolve. "I've been thinking a lot about what I want for myself and Tommy." It was a door slowly creaking open, allowing her truth to spill out. "I want to make a better life for us, but I feel like I don't have the skills. I'm scared that I'm not enough." He nodded slowly, his expression inscrutable, but Maria chose to press on. Every word was a stride toward liberation from her fears. "I'm still working at the diner, trying to scrape by, but I feel lost." Vince leaned forward, his eyes scanning hers with an intensity that ignited a spark. "You came here because you want to change that, right?" His question landed between them, echoing with the weight of accountability. "Yes, I do," Maria affirmed, her voice gaining strength. She was no longer merely a waitress but a woman ready to shed the layers of self-doubt. "I want to learn and grow. I want to believe that I can." "Then let us talk about that." His words wrapped around her, a tether of hope pushing her forward. "Your job isn't just a stop on the way, it's part of your journey. But to evolve, you must embrace the uncomfortable. What skills do you have?" Maria's mind raced, searching in the recesses for the talents she'd buried under the weight of her responsibilities. "I'm good with people. I can handle tough situations without losing my cool. I keep things organized and running smoothly." "Those are invaluable skills," he asserted, a hint of enthusiasm dancing in his tone. "You just need a little direction." Gradually, a plan formed in her mind, but it was wrapped in uncertainty. Could she really leverage her strengths into something meaningful? "How do I begin?" she asked, feeling a connection of purpose in their conversation. "Start by setting concrete goals. Let us develop a roadmap for your growth. We'll identify opportunities that align with your skills." His calm demeanor soothed her self-doubt, and for the first time, Maria felt a whisper of possibility. "Why are you willing to help me?" Though she was cautious, curiosity flickered in her chest. There had to be a reason behind his willingness to invest in her. "I see potential in you that you don't yet recognize," he responded, his voice steady. "You have the spirit to rise above your situation. That's why I'm here." A connection sparked a fleeting recognition of shared humanity amidst the impersonal world they lived in. Maria felt fragments of her worth stitched together, and where once there was desolation, hope began carving its place. Yet, despite the burgeoning optimism, the undercurrent of fear still pulsed through her. What if she stumbled on this new path? What if she failed to meet expectations, both her own and Vince's? As she mulled over these questions, her mind whirled with the possibilities ahead. Would she challenge herself beyond comfort? Or would she retreat into the safety of her known chaos? The thought of taking this leap ignited a fire in her, and she grasped it tightly. "Okay, let us do it," she declared, a quiet strength resonating in her words. "I'll take the first step." "Good. That's the spirit." As they started sketching out a plan, ideas flowed between them like a current. With each action item, Maria felt the boundaries of her previous self starting to dissolve. The weight of her past no longer dominated her, and she could see herself emerging anew. But just as Maria began to revel in this new clarity, Vince's expression shifted. "There's one more thing we need to discuss," he added, his tone darkening slightly. "It won't come without its challenges. You're stepping into something more than just job growth." The sudden change in tone primed her instincts. An unsettling revelation hovered on the edge, casting a shadow over her invigorated spirit. What did he mean by challenges? And how far was she willing to go to transform her life? Intrigued but cautious, Maria steeled herself for what lay ahead, intrigued yet apprehensive as she awaited the next revelation that could redefine the trajectory of her aspirations. What door would Vince open next, and was she prepared to walk through it? Vince leaned back in his chair, allowing the weight of his words to settle between them like a thick fog. Maria's heart thudded in her chest, a chorus of anticipation and fear thrumming beneath her skin. She sensed the shift in the conversation, keenly aware that she was standing on the precipice of a revelation that could alter the course of her life. "Challenges?" she echoed, striving to maintain composure. The resolve she had momentarily grasped now felt fragile, like a newly sprouted seed. "Every growth experience comes with hurdles," he explained, his gaze unyielding. "It's essential to understand what those obstacles might be before you dive into this." He paused, gauging her reaction. "You'll be stepping outside of your comfort zone, and that can be disorienting." Maria nodded, knowing deep down that she had already been navigating discomfort for years. The relentless cycle of making ends meet, the constant juggling of responsibilities, this was familiar terrain. Yet the thought of confronting new fears made her stomach twist. "What kind of challenges can I expect?" Vince's expression softened slightly, and she caught the hint of empathy in his demeanor. "For starters, your mindset. You'll need to fight against self-doubt every day. You must learn to challenge the deep-rooted beliefs that tell you aren't capable of more." Self-doubt. The phrase echoed in her mind like a haunting melody. It was the very narrative she longed to rewrite but often found hard to escape. "And what if I fail?" His voice was firm, drawing her focus back to him. "Failing isn't the end. It's part of the process. You'll learn from your missteps. But you cannot fear it. Embrace it." The truth of his words resonated deeply, yet she couldn't help but feel the tendrils of anxiety creeping in. Could she really flip the script on a lifetime of conditioning? Could she shake off the identity of the woman who barely managed to keep afloat? "What else?" she asked, her curiosity edging out her fear. "There's the social aspect too. You'll interact with people who may not understand your journey. They may question your choices and capabilities." He leaned in closer. "Some might even undermine your efforts. It's crucial to build a network of support, people who believe in your vision." The idea set off a storm of reflections within Maria. The diner existed as a comfortable cocoon but also as a reminder of her limitations. Stepping outside of it would mean encountering people who operated in realms she was unfamiliar with, but the thought of being undermined, judged, those fears were tangible and visceral. "What if they're right?" she murmured, hearing her own voice tremble. "What if I don't fit in?" "Then you redefine what fitting in means." His words were steady, cutting through her apprehensions. "You'll find your community, but first, you need to believe in your own capacity to grow. Elevate your presence, own your space. They spent the next hour detailing her immediate goals, but Maria felt the looming uncertainty of the unknown clinging like a fog. With each plan they crafted, she mentally noted the different possibilities for failure that lurked in the shadows. In just a few weeks, we can work toward getting you involved in workshops and networking sessions, Vince added, enthusiasm creeping back into his tone. These will be critical environments for you to test your skills. Each workshop was a door, but did she have the strength to walk through them? It was a question she would have to face head-on. I'll need to prepare myself, she said, a flicker of determination igniting within her. Preparing is a part of the journey, Vince responded. You have a week until the first workshop. Use it to bolster your confidence. Read, practice, reflect. Every step counts. Maria felt the ground shifting beneath her, a mixture of excitement and fear racing through her veins. This was her moment to evolve. And don't forget, he added, almost as an afterthought, you should also consider how you're going to manage Tommy during this transformation. His statement sent a fresh wave of panic coursing through her. Balancing a career while being a devoted mother loomed over her like a storm cloud. Could she truly juggle it all? As she processed this new layer of complexity, the seeds of doubt began to dig in. Maria contemplated the choices she had to make, each with its ripple effects not only on her own life but on Tommy's as well. Just as she wrestled with this new challenge, Vince leaned forward again, his voice carrying a weight of gravity. One last thing, Maria. There are people watching you motivated to see you succeed, but also keen to see you stumble. Their agenda might not align with yours. The warning sent a shiver down her spine. In this new world she was stepping into, adversaries could hide in plain sight, disguised as allies. The stakes were higher than she had imagined. Determined not to let fear dictate her actions, Maria clenched her fists beneath the table. Would she summon the courage to not only chase her dreams but also defend them against the scrutiny of a world that didn't yet believe in her? The answer lingered in the air, waiting to be found. It was time for her to confront the very shadows she had long avoided, a reckoning that would decide not just her future, but the future of everything she held dear. And as she contemplated her next move, the door of uncertainty swung wide open, inviting both opportunity and adversity to creep in. How would she choose to face this transformative moment? The morning sun pierced through her bedroom window, illuminating the stacks of books and papers that had become her companions in the days leading to the first workshop. With each title she explored, Maria felt both the weight of knowledge and the burgeoning sense of possibility. Yet, with the warmth of the sun came a chill of dread, an undercurrent that tugged at her resolute facade. Maria leaned over the table, her fingers skimming the pages of a book on self-empowerment, but her mind drifted back to Vince's warning. The thought that others might scrutinize her choices gnawed at her, limiting her readiness to embrace what lay ahead. Was she truly capable of stepping into this new world, or was she destined to fail when it mattered most? The gravitational pull of her responsibilities as a mother loomed heavier than ever. Tommy's laughter echoed in her memory, infusing her with fleeting warmth, but a growing anxiety clouded it. If she ventured into this unknown, would she be present enough for him? Could the sacrifice of precious moments together ever be justified by a potential new life? As she wrestled with these thoughts, the door creaked open, and Tommy bounded into the room, his boundless energy somehow grounding her spiraling nerves. "Mom. Are you ready?" he asked, eyes sparkling with an innocent enthusiasm that tugged at her heart. "Ready for what, kiddo?" she replied, attempting to channel some of his vibrant spirit. "The park. You promised we could go today." Her heart began to race, a joyous pang clashed with the imposing deadlines hovering over her head. "Of course. Just give me a moment to get dressed." As she threw on a simple outfit, Maria was reminded of the promises she made to herself. This was not just about workshops or networking, it was about carving out a better life for her son. She straightened her shoulders as determination washed over her. If Rome wasn't built in a day, nor could she reconstruct her own destiny overnight. It was a daily commitment to inch forward, facing each clock strike with intent. They spent the morning at the park, where laughter intertwined with the scent of fresh grass. Maria found herself awash with freedom, watching Tommy dash around with unrestrained joy, making friends with other kids effortlessly. The sight amazed her as she captured these moments in her mind like a cherished photograph. Here he was thriving, and for a split second, the swirling doubts quieted, yet, there also lay a stark reminder in viewing Tommy's carefree existence. She had spent years anchored in fear, unable to seize opportunities. Could she allow her own insecurities to shape her son's future? The real challenge was not just jumping into the deep end for herself but also ensuring that he would always swim alongside her, confident. By the time they returned home, the room was filled with the echoes of a beautiful day, but Maria's resolve began to wane under the weight of what loomed ahead. Sitting down, she opened her laptop to look for resources, strategies, anything that could ignite her momentum. Each click felt like a small step towards igniting her aspirations, yet it felt like she was trudging through molasses. Her phone buzzed a message from Vince about the upcoming workshop details. Excitement and dread danced in her chest as her finger hovered over the screen. She needed guidance, she needed support, but more than that, she needed to confront an uncomfortable truth. Her path was undeniably hers alone, and she must take ownership of its direction. What if she weren't just seeking validation, but rather wielding her own voice to shape her narrative? Reaching for the phone, she took a breath, preparing to respond. As she put her thoughts into words, a sudden understanding settled within her. She wouldn't be the woman simply surviving, she would embrace the fear that had woven its way through her life and use it as fuel. Just then, another message appeared, but this time it wasn't from Vince. Instead, it was a notification from a social media platform, unveiling a video of a mother battling the odds, the kind of story that exemplified resilience. Watching the woman speak, Maria could feel the corners of her heart align with possibility. She suddenly realized the next step, sharing her own story, vulnerabilities included, could be a form of empowerment. Instead of seeking permission from others, she must declare her intent to be seen, but was she truly prepared for everything that declaration might invite? Hesitant yet invigorated, she pondered the implications of opening herself up to both allyship and scrutiny. As Maria closed her laptop, the atmosphere in the room shifted. Rather than hesitation, it sparked an urgency, one that beckoned her toward action. The question lingered at the forefront of her mind: would daring to share her journey serve as the push she needed, or would it deepen her fear? The crossroads loomed ahead, waiting to usher her into an uncertain but promising expanse. Would she claim her vulnerability as a strength, or would she retreat, letting the moment slip through her fingers? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange hue across the living room, Maria took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment. The world outside buzzed with life, but inside, she fought to quiet her mind. The fear she had felt earlier now coiled into a corner of her psyche, replaced by a flickering flame of determination. After a restless evening filled with indecision, she found herself seated at her desk, a blank page stretching out in front of her. The idea of sharing her story had become both an anchor and a tempest, swaying with the tide of her swirling thoughts. What if her words fell flat? What if vulnerability was met with judgment rather than understanding? Each thought came with a counterpoint, yet one truth began to solidify: she owed it to herself, and to Tommy, to step into the light. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard as she fought against the instinct to retreat. The glow of the screen illuminated the worry lines etched on her forehead, mirroring the internal battle she faced. She was afraid, not just of exposing her vulnerabilities, but of what it would mean to truly own her narrative. Would others see her as a failure for attempting something bold, or would they recognize the courage it took to rise? Maria cracked her knuckles, leaning into the challenge. The workshop was merely days away. She couldn't afford to let self-doubt consume her. With each keystroke, she poured out the rawness of her experience: the long nights, the dreams deferred, the aching weight of responsibility. She wrote about Tommy and her relentless desire to carve out a future that felt more vibrant than the past. The catharsis of the words unlocked something within her, a release of pent-up fears and hopes alike, but as she typed, her resolve began to stumble again. What if no one cared? What if her story was just another tale in a sea of voices more compelling than hers? She clicked on the social media platform, scrolling through various posts shared to inspire. The images of success and comfort felt like both a mirror and a judgment, reflecting an allure that Maria wished to touch but feared she would never grasp. Suddenly, a notification popped up: a message from Vince. He congratulated her on her dedication and offered his unwavering support. It was a simple act, yet it read like a lifeline in the chaotic sea of her doubts. Perhaps, she pondered, it didn't matter if the world was hesitant to embrace her story. What mattered was the declaration of intent, the kickstart to a journey that was undeniably hers. That thought ignited her passion once again, and with renewed vigor, she closed the laptop. It wasn't enough to just write. She would share her words live and face the audience that had once terrified her. They would hear her, see her, engage with her journey. Could this leap toward transparency serve as both a transformative experience for her and a beacon for others? Yet, as she made this commitment, a familiar insecurity crept back, whispering doubts. Not only was it a bold step into her own narrative, but it also meant reckoning with what lay beneath her relationship with Vince, the fear of judgment, and her growing sense of self-worth. Staring out the window at the fading light, Maria felt the shadows of uncertainty deepen, but they no longer extinguished her fire. This evolved version of herself was not willing to diminish. She craved transformation. Tomorrow, she decided, she would draft a plan. A strategy to share not just words but her essence. And buried beneath the fear was the deep longing to inspire, to connect, to transform not only her reality but also that of others who might feel stuck in their own. The vision of the workshop loomed, but it didn't frighten her as it once had. Instead, it shimmered like an open door, inviting her to step beyond the threshold into a burgeoning community of dreamers and doers. Would she embrace the chance to share her story with authenticity or shy away as she had done for years? The pieces were falling into place, yet the biggest challenge remained: would she rise to meet the moment, or would she cower, allowing doubt to dictate her narrative once more? Just as the sun disappeared, wrapping her world in dusk, Maria felt the weight of her decision solidify within. In an arena teeming with engagement and scrutiny, she was about to face something monumental, her own potential, unfolding before her like a map leading to untold possibilities. And as those thoughts gathered momentum, excitement coursed through her veins, urging her towards unforeseen challenges on the horizon. Would she emerge as the person she had always held inside, waiting to break free? The morning of the workshop arrived, and the air felt electric with possibilities. Maria awoke with a deep determination flowing through her veins, a stark contrast to the fear that had once paralyzed her. She stood in front of the mirror, observing a woman transformed, a culmination of every choice that had brought her closer to her aspirations. This was it, the moment she would step into her power. With a well-rehearsed morning routine, Maria's heart swelled as she prepared a breakfast that Tommy devoured with glee. She felt buoyed by the warmth of his laughter, a reminder of why she was pursuing this change. Each bite he took filled her with purpose, solidifying the unshakable bond between them. Today was not just about her, it was about them, their shared dreams, their future. As she headed to the venue, Maria felt a kaleidoscope of emotions swirling within her. She kept reminding herself that she was no longer just a waitress, struggling to survive. She had become a woman of ambition and resilience, a mother dedicated to carving out a brighter world for her son. Arriving at the workshop, she was enveloped by an atmosphere pulsing with energy. The participants, a diverse mix of hopeful individuals, gathered in small clusters, exchanging stories and ideas. This was a far cry from the monotone existence at the diner. It was a vibrant mosaic filled with color and vibrancy. When the sessions began, Maria listened attentively, absorbing the insights shared by speakers who had transcended their own struggles. They articulated a familiar narrative, where adversity morphed into triumph, encouraging her to embrace every bit of vulnerability that surged through her. As she took notes, the reality of her potential crystallized within her, a conviction that she could utilize her experiences to mentor others, just as Vince had offered to guide her. As lunch approached, the attendees broke into smaller discussion groups. In that moment, Maria found her voice. She had spent years relegating her story to the sidelines, but now, stepping into her role as a burgeoning leader felt invigorating. With each word she shared, a weight lifted. She was no longer a passive observer but an engaged participant articulating dreams of transformation. Her narrative, once tangled in despair, now echoed with hope and determination. At the end of the day, Maria felt the room quiver with applause. She had conquered her fears, speaking authentically and earning not only recognition but the respect of her peers. Their encouragement solidified something profound within her, a resounding affirmation of her worth. These were not just empty compliments, they were the building blocks of newfound confidence that in the weeks that followed, Maria embraced her trajectory with even more fervor. She pursued internships, volunteered at community foundations, and made connections in the industries she aspired to join. Each accomplishment further chipped away at the layers of doubt that had long held her captive. A small promotion at the diner recognized her commitment and ability to lead. She became a mentor for new hires, sharing her journey to inspire others to chase their dreams. Then came the moment that turned everything upside down. Vince reached out, inviting her to join a network of professionals in their field, seeking to harness the talents of those with similar stories. His faith in her efforts transcended mere mentorship. It indicated he viewed her as a peer, and she was ready to embrace this new identity. One evening, Maria sat at the kitchen table, sketching out future goals. This act, once marred by uncertainty, now filled her with excitement as she designed a roadmap to success, integrating every skill learned and every lesson encountered. She could envision not just a career but a legacy, a way to inspire both Tommy and others, and there it was, the moment she had awaited. Maria held her journal in hand when she spotted Tommy drawing a vibrant picture of their home, filled with rooms and sunshine. A deep surge of gratitude washed over her. She realized that not only had she recreated her narrative, but her actions also facilitated the creation of a brighter outlook for Tommy. With every interaction, every spoke of connection, she was reshaping the landscape of their lives. As the months rolled on, Maria stood before a room full of similar stories, sharing her journey at a local community center. The vulnerability she had once feared transformed into an emblem of empowerment. Beyond personal growth, her transformation sparked another evolution. She redefined what it meant to not only survive but to thrive, realizing that success meant overcoming external judgments and internal fears. Maria's life blossomed, layering dreams upon dreams. It was no longer just about escaping the past, but firmly grounding herself in a future she had crafted. By courageously facing her narrative, Maria achieved a profound sense of self-fulfillment, stronger than she had ever deemed possible. Even when the shadows flickered, she could now face them with resolute confidence, proving to herself and Tommy that dreams were attainable. The recognition she received from her peers translated into solid confidence, and she established herself as a guiding light for those entrapped in their own struggles. Maria had identified her purpose: to elevate others while continuing to conquer her own boundaries, shaping a legacy rich with compassion and resilience. This was the launchpad she had always dreamed of, the moment of true transformation where no longer was she only a figure in struggles. She emerged as a beacon of hope for the people around her. Send your support for Maria's journey by actively engaging with this invaluable community. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about her journey and the incredible transformations ahead. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share.